Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a brand new box office breakdown show here on Max Talks Movies. And today we're talking about the weekend of August 6th to August 8th. We're looking at the top 5 overall movies at the weekend box office this past weekend. We're also going to look at the box office for the top movies overall domestically here in 2021. And we're also going to look at the overall worldwide box office. So my name is Madison Brooke. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing and ringing the bell for notifications. I do this show every single Monday, as well as movie reviews, TV show reviews, and movie rankings. So if you're new to the channel, subscribe, ring the bell. As I said, I do movie reviews. I've reviewed, I believe, 4 of the 5 movies that are in the top 5 movies of the weekend. So definitely consider seeing my playlist at the end of this video. Those are where all you can find all my 2021 movie reviews. Also, like the video and tell me which movies in the comment section down below did you see in theaters this weekend, or did you choose not to go to the theaters this weekend? Let's talk about it in the comment section down below. So coming in first place this weekend at the box office is, not shockingly, The Suicide Squad, which was available both in theaters and on HBO Max with no extra cost. And it's become one of the more, I would say, disappointing films of the year as it pertains to box office. It is my favorite movie of the year in general. I love this movie, but sadly, it only picked up $26.5 million this weekend at the box office. It was playing in just over 4,000 theaters. And this is a very disappointing total. It ranks as the 3rd biggest domestic opening for a movie from Warner Brothers that is both a digital and a HBO Max and in theaters release. It still falls short of the $30 million mark, which Space Jam: A New Legacy and Godzilla vs. Kong all did. This Suicide Squad did not reach that point. It reached the same kind of levels as Mortal Kombat and The Conjuring: The Devil Made Me Do It, which was very disappointing. I think the projections were mid to high 30s, possibly a 4. You heard it was like $4 million on Thursday night, and that was around where A Quiet Place was doing. So people said this could be a pretty big movie. Extremely disappointing. And we also heard some news today that it also did not do well on HBO Max, even fell below Mortal Kombat on HBO Max. So a bit of a disappointing opening weekend for the Suicide Squad. We're also going to find out how big of a drop it does have next week. We've seen most movies that start off an opening weekend drop 70%, which is a huge drop off. For this movie, it cannot take a 70% dip in its next weekend. We'll see. It has a 95% Rotten Tomatoes. It seems like the fans like it a lot, but as a whole, not a lot of people saw the movie, which is a pretty big disappointment for this. We'll see if this affects James Gunn's future of DC or anything with this franchise going forward. Coming in second place this weekend is Jungle Cruise. Jungle Cruise, in its second week, gets $15.6 million, and it only drops 55%, which is really good. Jungle Cruise does take its domestic total up to $65.3 million at the box office this past weekend. Again, this movie is available. As of now, it is the last Disney Premier Access film, which is $30 Premier Access on Disney Plus, or you can see it in the theater. We'll talk about Premier Access at the end of the video when we preview the weekend's movies this upcoming weekend. So Jungle Cruise only drops 55%, which is a huge win for Disney, as you see movies like Black Widow, and obviously F9 dropped 70%, but those movies obviously opened a lot more. But even Space Jam, which opened very similarly to Jungle Cruise, did drop to 70%. The fact that it only dropped 55% is a really good sign. A really strong weekend for Jungle Cruise. Easily the winners of the box office, in my opinion, this weekend. The fact that it didn't drop that much, it's still in the teens at the box office, which is boding well, because The Rock did say last week that he is in the middle of discussion of a sequel, which is not a huge shocker. Disney needs to keep The Rock obviously happy and doing more things. Coming in third place this week, I'm shocked this movie has held up this much. And in its 3rd week, I believe, yes, a 3rd week at the box office, Old from Universal makes $4.1 million. That is a 40% drop from last weekend. It takes its total to $38.5 million. I don't think 3 weeks ago we thought that Old would be the movie out of that weekend, where Old came out the same weekend as Snake Eyes. Not just did Old do much better than Snake Eyes, but Old has remained in the top 5 in its every single week of release thus far. I think Old was number 3 last week, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So Old remaining at number 3, $4 million drop of 40%. Again, the movie does not have a high budget, so it's doing really well for Universal. That's not including its sales PVOD as well. So M. Night Shyamalan's Old has stayed in the top 5 its first 3 weekends, while Snake Eyes only stayed in the top 5 for 1 weekend. And since then, and again, spoiler to the rest of the list, obviously, Snake Eyes is at number 7 this weekend. So not good whatsoever for Snake Eyes. Let's go to number 4 on the list, and still hanging on in the top 5 is Black Widow. In its 5th week of release, the film has now made $4 million this past weekend, a 45% dip. No, sorry, it's a 38% dip from last weekend. It takes its domestic total to 174.3. We'll talk about that in the domestic total. But Black Widow still hanging on, even though obviously the big overarching news surrounding the movie, Scarlett Johansson suing Disney about the back end deal she had about this movie going on. Again, there's another film, which is Premiere Access. So Black Widow still hanging in there. We're going to see if this film continues to stay in the top 5. This might be the last weekend it hangs on in the top 5. We shall see. But Black Widow still doing well, and it is the last, again, the only as of now MCU movie to be Premiere Access. Shang-Chi coming out in early September. That will be a major test for movie theaters, and it is a movie exclusive in theaters release for the MCU. And coming in 5th place this weekend was Stillwater, which it was in 5th place last weekend. It is its 2nd weekend from Focus Features. $2.8 million, a 45% dip from last weekend. Its total gross in its 2 weeks in theaters is $10 million. Again, the battle was, even though The Green Knight was ahead of Stillwater last week, I think Green Knight was number 2 at the box office this weekend. The Green Knight actually fell out of the top 5. The Green Knight fell 62% this weekend. It's number 6 by a very small margin to Stillwater. But the fact that Green Knight fell off that much, Stillwater stayed in place. I was very shocked about that. Not a lot of people were talking about this movie, but I guess more people talking about Stillwater than the Green Knight. So Stillwater is the one that hangs on to the top 5 this weekend, not the Green Knight. Let's also talk about the overall box office domestically. We've been talking about how A Quiet Place was the number 1 movie of the year, and it was for most of this year. Then it became F9. And this weekend, as I predicted last weekend, Black Widow barely overtook F9 as has the most money domestically at the box office. So far this year is now taking 174, as I just said, $174.3 million, which overtakes F9. F9 currently sitting at a 171 on the money, $1 million for the weekend overall so far this year. So Black Widow now is in 1st place. We'll also see how long Black Widow can hang in there. As of now, it should be for a little bit, maybe even before Shang-Chi. We'll see what happens the next month before that movie comes out. Another movie in the hundreds, A Quiet Place is right below 160, $159.3 million. It is currently number 3. And the other movie at $100 million is still Godzilla versus Kong. So those are the 4 movies, only 4 movies the entire year to gross $100 million here in the States. Again, Free Guy coming out this weekend. We'll see if that is broken. And same thing, same rankings as always, guys, from the worldwide box office. F9, still the most successful movie based here or made here in the United States. At the global box office, it is currently number 3 at the worldwide box office with $661 million worldwide. 2 Chinese films are in the number 1 and 2 spots. Following F9, number 4 is Godzilla versus Kong. Number 5 is Black Widow. Number 6 is A Quiet Place Part 2. Number 7 is Cruella. And number 9 is The Conjuring, The Devil Made Me Do It. Those are, again, 6 movies out of the top 10 are American-based films in the top 10 worldwide. Black Widow has grossed $350 worldwide, and that movie has not even been released yet in China. So we'll see if that ever happens this month. But as of now, F9 by far here in America, as Godzilla vs. Kong is at 467, over $200 million more is the next movie behind F9 at the worldwide box office. As I said, guys, there's actually 3 movies coming out this weekend. First of all is Free Guy, which is the first Disney film of the entire year to not be released on Premiere Access. Free Guy will be exclusively in theaters. Also, Don't Breathe 2 and the new Aretha Franklin biopic, Respect. Also, are all three theaters exclusive movies this weekend, as it feels like the Delta variant took a big hit with the people going to see the Suicide Squad. Will it take a big hit on movies like Free Guy, which has been a highly anticipated film for a lot of people this year? So those are three theaters exclusive movies, a big test for movies this weekend. We'll break it down next weekend here on the channel, and I'll see you guys then.